Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wind Down Friday. Today, our special guest is Chris Allexandre, Senior Vice President and General Manager of Power at Renesas. Hi, Chris. How is it going? Thanks a
Hello.
lot for
Yeah, hello
being here.
Maurizio, hello everybody. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Thanks a lot to be here. Where are you located, Chris?
I'm located in the Bay Area, on the West Coast, California, of the US.
Okay, United States. Good. So, Chris, you have held your current role since January 2024. Please correct me.
That's
And
correct.
you are responsible for overseeing Renesas power management and discrete products and executing the company's power strategies. So I am very excited to know more about to hear about your journey, your remarkable journey in the semiconductor industry. So may you tell us about your career path in semiconductor industry from your early days to your current role now at Renesas? So could you share with us how you embarked on this path, special particular moments that shaped your career up to your current role now at Renesas?
Sure. Maurizio, you and I have something in common, which after a few words, people know where we're coming from. So clearly, you clearly come from Italy, I clearly come from France, you can hear from the accent. Although I've been in the US now for 10 years. Just before rewinding the tape of my career, as you said, so I'm part of Renesas executive team. We have 4 business units, power, analog, embedded processing, and high performance compute. And I'm basically running one of these, which is about 25% of the company. And the company is about 12 billion semiconductor global company. So I started my career back in 1997. That doesn't make us any younger, although it felt that yesterday. I worked 17 years in TI. I joined as a new college grad, first in application engineering, and then moved quickly to technical sales.
Mhm.
Did most of my career in sales and marketing. Grew through the ladders, and was the head of sales for Europe for TI as a vice president. Then I left to the US in 2013 to join Fairchild when Fairchild was kind of revamping with the new executive team. And then joined IDT later on as a CSMO, Chief Sales Marketing Officer, under Greg Waters, the CEO. And then after a few years of growth, we got acquired by Renesas. And that's how I joined Renesas. And through the acquisition, was running sales and marketing again for Doshi, the CEO, and then took over that role just a couple of months ago. And the moment that shaped my career, and that's going to kind of close the loop at the end when we're going to talk about advice and so forth. I was very fortunate that TI invested in my development by sending me overseas.
Mhm.
So I started my career in France. That's where I kind of grew up. But very quickly, I moved to China, in 2004. Then worked for Germany. The first 2 years of my career in TI, I worked in Finland, I worked in England, I worked in the US, I worked in Germany. So the last 25 years of career, almost 30 years now, I've been working 10 years in the US, a couple of years in China, Germany, and multiple countries. And I think, that kind of shaped a little bit my vision of the world and I think how I got there.
So, Chris, given your extensive experience across various market segments, so I would like to hear from you your perspective on the evolving about the semiconductor industry. So, what changes have you noticed? What changing are you seeing? So, how has the semiconductor industry evolved, particularly in terms of technology trends, for sure, but also customer demands? That is important.
I'll tell you one thing, I don't know when you joined the semiconductor world, Maurizio. I joined, as I said, in the late 90s. This was hot back then, okay? Because it was on the communication was driving the innovation. First, infrastructure communication, networking, and then you had the era of the mobile, okay, which was really driving the disruption, right? And then it became, allow me to say, a bit of a boring industry. People talked about us just 10 years ago as a mature industry. And then, as everybody have noticed over the last few years, we are basically back to super high speed and fast innovation. That's driven by disruption in the technology. High performance compute is clearly changing the landscape. We're going to talk about this. Power. is now, making a big difference in most of the mega trends that we see in the world. So I would say semiconductor is back in the game when it comes to making a huge difference. It's a huge industry, 600 to 700 billion, depending on the probably closer to 700 billion this year. And there's no doubt that there's going to be a trillion to probably a $2 trillion industry, okay, in the next few years. So this is the one thing that has changed. I think we're back to super high speed, not with one market, which used to be a bit of the trend. It was a kind of the growth was driven by one market in the old days. Now it's multiple markets, okay? So AI should be on the edge and the infrastructure and data centers. Should be EV and electrification of the automotive industry, green energy, high performance compute, as I mentioned. This is driving a lot of growth and disruption in the landscape. And in my opinion, what's happening is not just that we are getting faster, it's at the same time with the technology getting more complex. So think about it, right? We're in the last few years, the next few years, it's getting more complex and things are moving faster. The automotive industry, the data centers, there is a consumerization of the way design operating. And what used to be done in 2 years needs to be done in 18 months and not 12 months. We talked to data centers and AI company. They are cutting their design cycles. We talk to automotive industry. They are cutting design cycles because there is this consumerization of the technology. So we're trying to do more things faster, which means the relationship between the vendor and the customers is changing. We have to provide more solutions. We have to basically innovate more, but we have to execute, because if you don't execute, you can't innovate, right? So there's really a disruption, in my opinion, in the semiconductor market, and in particular power. We'll talk about power because that's what I do, but it's fascinating, in my opinion, what's happening right now in the semi industry.
Nice point. So Chris, let's jump outside of work. Tell us more about you. So hobbies, activities. So how do you enjoy to stay inspired, reading books, maybe drinking good wine, food, etc. Yeah, cheers.
Just to that. So what I do, first of all, those jobs take a lot of time, right? So I'm fortunate, and I would always advise everybody. I tell the same to my kids. If you can combine your passion with your work, that's the best. And I think Steve Jobs mentioned that early on, right? If you can love what you do, it makes you better, and it makes you more resilient for the long term. So those jobs take a lot of time. Practicing a lot of sport, okay? Mostly cycling with my buddies here. I live in California. It's a great place to road cycle. Nice. So a lot of cyclings, a lot of running as well, just to keep in shape, of course. Spending time with my family as much as I can, and wine is a bit. It's more than a hobby. I'm also a collectioner when it comes to wine, and I have a few thousand bottles in the cellar, which I collect and drink, of course. So between this and I used to track with cars. I don't do that anymore. I don't have time, and maybe also I think you get older, you get safer, okay, on the risk you're willing to take. But yeah, pretty busy with the family, the wine collection. My wife and I are also collectioners of art, so doing multiple activities. But I'm glad that you picked the wine, because that's one of my passion, actually.
Good. So, talking about the future of Renesas, what excites you the most about the future of Renesas and the semiconductor industry as a whole? In particular, my question about my favorite topics. What about wide-bandgap technologies?
So let me put it back to the company first in Renesas, sure. Right? So, I mean, Renesas might be known by most of your auditors and listeners, but actually, we are changing so fast that there is always a lag between how we are perceived and who we are really, right? So it used to be a Japanese company. It's now a global company. We've acquired multiple large US companies, starting with Intersil in 17, IDT in 19. I joined through IDT acquisition, Dialog, and a few others. So now it's a very global company, north of $12 billion. Headquartered in Japan, with the executive now mostly in Silicon Valley. So the CEO staff is actually, mostly in Silicon Valley. Very broad portfolio from power, analog, connectivity, MCU, MPU, and high performance compute. So that's kind of the landscape. So what excites me with Renesas is this is like a fast moving, global, very aggressive in terms of top line expansion. Driven by our CEO, Toshi Shibata-san, that has this vision to put the company on the map at 20 billion. What excites me about the semiconductor is what I mentioned earlier, right? So there is an acceleration, there is a disruption, okay? And any acceleration, disruption, redistribute the cards, okay? And you've seen, our industry has seen the rise of companies and also the fall of companies, right? And if you look in high performance compute, I mean, just look, NVIDIA just passed $3 trillion market cap this week. So, over the last few weeks, right? And it's amazing how things are changing. So what excites me the most is this, and in particular power. The reason why I'm so excited about power is power used to be the attached to everything else, right? The things that everybody needs but nobody cares about. And I think it has moved from being on the peripheral to being in the core. Because what limits today the performance of those GPUs and those CPUs and those NPUs is actually how much power you can distribute to those digital large SoCs. What makes or break, okay, the future of the automotive industry is how much power you can combine into a single chassis at the cheapest possible cost. What makes or break the transformation of the green energy is basically how efficient you can deliver power, right? So it's fascinating how power has become kind of the core, right? And I think power is expected as a $50 to $60 billion market, which is going to grow faster than semiconductor, and that's no doubt. And you mentioned wide bandgap, which in which market do you see the beginning of a complete change on the way the technology is implemented? And I think, not saying that silicon is at its end, but it's run its course. And the future clearly reside in new technology, should it be silicon carbide or gallium nitride. And, because at the end of the day, if you want to get to the next level of efficiency, the next level of, high-speed switching, and basically combining more power into less space at higher temperature, there's no way, okay, you can do that with silicon. So I think, I'm fascinated by this because I think it's just the beginning of a big transformation. Everybody kind of is counting market share right now of who has what of silicon carbide and GaN, but since we are at the first kilometer of a 42-kilometer marathon, okay, it doesn't matter how fast you are right now. It matters the momentum you're building, and we are very excited. Renesas is determined to become a leader in wide bandgap. I'm sure you know that we've made the big steps in building our silicon carbide, by retrofitting one of our fab, and we are active expansion. We're also expanding our portfolio with the acquisition of Transform, based in South California. Very excited to have those guys on board and very committed to have all those technologies. Okay, so from the PMIC to the performance core for CPUs, to battery management, to SiC, GaN, IGBT, MOSFETs, and all of the flavors I see in discrete to really kind of provide customers the choice, because technology will continue and operate in parallel depending on where you are in the application, the type of efficiency, the type of integration, and what you expect. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, very nice. So last one, Chris, my last question, talking about young people, young professionals, also young students or young new professional people. So what advice would you give to these people aspiring to build a career in semiconductor industry, especially in sales and marketing roles, but also in general? So feel free to share your comment, your advice.
So my advice, and I don't want this to sound like I'm trying to project to everybody my own experience, but I would say, if you look at today, semiconductor has never been so global and so complex as today. Okay, I'm sure everybody's familiar with the race on the technology, right? The race on technology, and this plays, even role at the geopolitical level between the different countries, right? And mastering technology, should be AI or anything else, okay, has become centerpiece of even how you control the business, right? And globally the position of the countries. And things have become a lot more global. So I think it's harder today to play a significant role in semiconductor if you don't understand the world. Now, I was fortunate, as I said, you know, we've lived, myself, my wife, and our kids, we've lived in multiple countries. We've been around the world for the last 25 years. I understand not everybody can do that. Okay. So if you can, I advise you to do this. Okay. I advise you to go, but not just travel. Okay. Just go and live in Asia, live in the US. Okay. Go around the world. But if you cannot, make sure that you are at least exposed in roles that gets out of your environment, right? I was very fortunate when I started my career in TI. I was in sales. I was working on telecom segment back then, right? And I worked with global customers that were all over the map, beyond Europe, and that exposed me to China. That exposed me to US. And I think that's my advice. You know, try to widen your scope to the different cultures and how the world is becoming complex. And I think it will expose you to more global, but also more technologies and more way to do things. And I think it will definitely shape your vision in a better way, right? So that's my advice. But again, I'm not trying to tell everybody that you have to be a global citizen, but I think it's important in career, especially in semiconductor, in my opinion.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks a lot. Awesome conversation. Thanks a lot. Cheers. And
thank you. Okay, and thank you,
thank
everybody.
you.
Okay,
Thank you for joining us, and have
You're
a good
welcome.
weekend.
Thank you. You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.